Tommy, great to
Jawohl.
see you. Thank you very much for your time. We speak
Of
English,
course.
right?
English is probably better for the few followers that are going to watch this today. I think staying international is a good thing. Yeah, good morning from LA. Good to see you, my friends.
How are you doing? How's the situation in LA? How's beautiful Sarah and your kids? Everybody doing good?
Yeah, thanks for asking. The whole family is doing great. Just following the protocols, been staying home quite a lot, obviously, which is not the easiest thing to do when you have, a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old that are very active and like to do things, especially with the weather the way it is recently here. The last, few weeks, just great. A little bit of a heat wave coming again the next couple of days, but it is what it is. Looks like we might ease up on a few things here starting end of the week, maybe some small restaurants, shops opening up again. Obviously the phase one where not too many people are supposed to go in and go back to regular life. You have to, respect obviously the situation and make sure that, we keep flattening the curve, make sure we do everything in the right direction to beat this sooner than later and sort of get back to normal. But yeah, we can't complain. Being home with the kids is fantastic and seeing them every day. So that's been a good part.
Tommy, in quarantine, there was not too many options. Was it closer to get into a fight with Sarah, or are you getting closer to get a third child? Because there was not many things in between, to be honest. So
it's either one way or the other. I think we'll try to remain to find out. It's depending on how much longer we have to go through the situation, and maybe we'll hear some news in the next few weeks or months if there was anything or not. But no, overall we're doing our best. It's people ask me a lot of the times, actually, a lot of my friends saying, God, it must be so crazy for you being home for so long, right? I mean, you're used to traveling all the time, right? And the truth of the matter is that, I've had so many surgeries throughout my career that, many times I've actually stayed home for very, very long periods of time. The first time I had shoulder surgery, then I actually had to have one following up 6 or 7 months later. I was almost home for an entire year, of course, traveling maybe in between or going to different places just to stay sane. But, so I'm kind of used to it and I really don't mind it. And again, when you have 2 children and to be present and be home with the kids and, pretty much watch all the Disney movies that are out there, trying to help with a few little homework things, even though my kids they don't really like me around when they have homeschooling, which is a whole new thing. Staying at home now and, looking at the iPads and having Zoom sort of, get-togethers with the teachers and fellow classmates. It's a bit different. And it looks like they're not going to go back to school till probably September now. So it's a little bit of a break for them in that sense. But the good news is that my kids actually miss going to school and being a part of it. So hopefully back to normal at some point.
But you try to stay fit. I saw it on Instagram. You did the challenge with the rope. So you are working out basically every day, Tommy?
I try to, yeah. I try to do something every day. There's maybe a few days here or there where I actually try to stretch a little bit more or do a little bit more yoga. That's one thing that I always sort of didn't like to do throughout my career. When you have a physio with you most of the time that does all that stuff for you, stretching and sort of like the manual therapy, the massages at night, I really miss that. So when you do train, which I don't really train anymore anyway, let's be honest. I mean, real training. I mean, I go out there and hit some balls, for an hour. I've been recently hitting a little bit with Sam Querrey as well and Justin Gimelstob, who all live here in LA. So it's fun and it's, it gets competitive at times. But when you don't have your physio with you constantly, which obviously I don't anymore, you got to pay more attention to, how you eat, what kind of ingredients you put in your body to help you for recovery. The stretching becomes very important. The recovery is, stretching, sleeping and trying to find any other option to make sure that the body somewhat stays in a good spot.
Tommy, obviously we want to talk a little bit about your career. You were the #2 in the world, 4 semifinals at Grand Slam tournament, silver medal at the Olympic Games. I mean, so much to talk about. But what's curious for the spectators here, how did you get into tennis? I mean, I know it. Your dad actually was in judo. So how came that you got into tennis?
Well, the truth of the matter is that my dad was teaching tennis when I was basically, a very young boy. My dad was always into judo. My dad most likely liked more the physical sports. Judo and ice hockey was sort of like his favorite. So he never really had a vision of his kids in that sense. I have an older sister and a younger sister being tennis players. But for me to sort of go to judo or go to a tennis club and hang out there, I chose the tennis club 100 times over. I really enjoyed it. I liked being there. I liked the atmosphere at a very young age. And so when I was there hanging out, the only chance my dad really had was to give me a little wooden racket and a couple of tennis balls and says, go to the wall and entertain yourself. And that's what I did. So that's how I started. playing against the wall. And, you know, it showed after a certain amount of weeks or months that I somewhat had some pretty good talent. And, you know, that led over to sometimes hitting little tennis balls at home. And then started, you know, using the chance to, you know, be part of some of my dad's teaching classes with other kids that were older than me. And so that's how I kind of got into it. And then people kind of said to my dad, look, I think your son has quite some talent. You should maybe see if you can progress it a little bit more. And for me, I don't know, like I just gravitated to it really, really easily. You know, when you do something that you do something well, and you see people looking at you while you're doing it, you know, even at a young age, you can kind of sense that. And then I started playing club matches at age 6, and I was beating, you know, older kids, you know, 8 years old, 9 years old, and everybody was sort of always talking about it. And then, you know, of course, it helped that, as you remember, Boris Becker winning Wimbledon back in 1985. You know, I was 7 years old.
You were 7 years old at that time?
Yeah, you must have been like 5 or something, right? So it's like, yeah. So I don't know, you probably remember it too, being into tennis already a little bit, you know, but for me at 7, you know, I really remembered that. And I got like the whole VHS tape for my birthday, you know, and I studied, you know, his entire matches throughout Wimbledon, winning it in 85. And, you know, and then 2 years later, I got to meet Boris the first time when I was 9 years old in Hamburg when he was training there, and got to hit some balls with him. So my vision was like, you know, I knew right away at like 7, 8 years old, like, okay, this is what I want to do.
That's what I wanted to ask. Like, obviously, I posted a picture today, Tommy. I love the picture. I'm 7 years old. You were 9. You had already the bigger trophy, which is totally fine for me. When I was 7, I already thought, like, because I thought I was good, but I saw you and I knew, oh, this is something special. He's probably like super good. Did you feel it the same way at this age already? Did you like maybe a special player?
I don't know in what way. I mean, I always felt like I was pretty good, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, I loved competing. I loved going out there. I mean, I remember the first time playing that tournament, actually, I was 8 years old. And at that time, we lived in Hamburg, Germany. And my dad looked at me and says, look, I can't go to Munich to the Sportcheck tournament. It's one of the biggest junior tournaments we have in Germany. But I talked to this family whose daughter is also playing in the tournament. And you're going to fly up to Munich and you're going to stay with them for a week and play that tournament and come home.
So for you, no problem at all. You were 8 years old. You took the plane by yourself because you wanted to compete in the tournament.
Yeah, you know, I always just, you know, you obviously trust your parents. You know, my dad is a very strong, you know, opinionated guy, you know, an alpha male. And he just told me what to do. And I was like, there was no like, no, Dad, I'm not going on a plane by myself. You know, the negotiating, there was no negotiating back then. So my dad said, pack your stuff, get your rackets, take you to the airport, and off you go. I was like, all right, that sounds good. So off I went, stayed with this family. It was the Aufschlag family, which means service, so even better of a story. And you know, stayed with them. Like I said, the daughter also played in the tournament. Went to play the tournament, you know, won it, had the trophy, and flew back home. And you know, that was sort of like, you know, again, of course, and even those little memories, you know, coming home on that flight from Munich back to Hamburg, I had the trophy in my hand. So everywhere I went with that trophy, people would ask me, "Oh, how did you win that? What did you do?" So, you know, you felt like, okay, wow, this is fun. I can get.
Would you say you got kind of addicted to winning at that time already, because you loved all the attention and like the satisfaction?
I loved competing. You know, just like, you know, getting that sort of like, you know, even when I felt like I was playing against, you know, older kids, you know, a year older or 2 years older, they sometimes couldn't believe that this little guy on the other side maybe was quite good and found a way somehow to compete well and to beat me. And you know, when you win trophies, obviously that gives yourself, you know, some self, you know, reassurance and motivation of like saying, okay, I'm one of the best kids maybe now in Germany. And then you hear, you know, people start to talk a little bit, you know, which age group are you doing well? Then, you know, remember playing the tournament in Lemgo and Detmold, and, you know, Boris won that tournament and, you know, Steffi Graf has won that tournament. So you hear your idols winning those tournaments and you're like, okay, I guess that's what I have to do as well in order to get to where they have gone. Björn Borg even, I think, won that tournament. I don't know how he got to play that one in Lemgo one time. And anyway, so it was, you know, always sort of like the need for more tournaments, more playing, and just seeing where I'm at worldwide as in the junior ages, and then see if I can take me to the big leagues.
Was it a super important step for you then, going right away to the States very early to see Nick Bollettieri? Because obviously you were like the big name already in Germany. Everybody was talking about you. And how was it going there? Have you been a number in the beginning, or you got special treatment right away? How was it the first time at IMG?
Well, it's a funny story, because the first time, the funny.
Yeah.
the German championships under 12 as a year younger, and my older sister won the German championships under 14, and we were both playing with Prince rackets. So we were invited to go to Bollettieri's 2 weeks prior to Christmas, and Sabine, my older sister, was going to play the Orange Bowl, which is obviously one of the biggest junior tournaments, or at least back in the day, it was like the junior tournament, you know, where all kids from all around the world come to play in different age divisions to see who's the best in the world. So I didn't play it at that time, and I was just stuck at the academy for 2 weeks. And again, when you're 11 years old and you fly to a different country you've never been to, you don't speak the language, you're going somewhere where you're not sure of. I was very happy to go with my older sister because she was 3 years older. She spoke some English. She's traveled before. She's been to New York. So she and she was much more sort of like, you know, friendly and talkative. I was more like the shy kid that wasn't like, you know, that open. I had to like get to know somebody first to really understand where I'm at. But the minute we got to the MBTA at that time, they separated us late at night, you know, because it was dormitories for girls and dormitories for boys. And I was shocked at that very moment already.
And
you
were 11, Tommy.
I was 11. And so they separated us. And I was telling my sister, I said, where are you going? And she's like, oh, we have to stay separately because it's boys and girls. And I was thinking I was going to stay with my sister in one bedroom and like, you know, like almost like a hotel type atmosphere. But now here we go. They separated us and I was already like shocked. And then they showed me the room that I was going to stay in. So there was six or seven other boys, ages between 16 and 18, in 2-bedroom, you know, bunk bed type atmosphere. So the guy that was working there, the staff, showed me a bunk bed and says, you have the bed on top and you can leave your clothes here or something. And there's clothes everywhere. There's guys everywhere. And, you know, loud music is playing in the living room. And I'm going, this is a joke. This can't be happening. Like, there's no way I can stay here. So I was already like, you know, homesick. And I was already thinking to myself, how am I going to do this? Trying to reach my sister, which at the time I didn't even know which.
It was not like nowadays. You couldn't send a WhatsApp. You couldn't call your dad right away.
Nothing.
Like
so you're basically stuck. I had my Discman, so I was listening to music, which then I found out the next day they stole it.
No way.
Yeah, so they stole it. So I tried to get it back. Nowhere to be found. You know, people coming in and out. And then, you know, did the practices, did the sort of like the whole academy feeling. You know, you go to the cafeteria, you pick out your tray, you see what kind of food you can get. And I was looking at the food at times and I'm going, what is this? I've never seen food at this sort of rate, you know, not to be like over extreme here, but I was shocked. You know, I was like, the food is not that good. The training is not that good. I'm on the court with like 7, 8 kids, you know, some of them don't really know how to play that well. And I'm just like, after day 3 or day 4, I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to leave. I'm ready to go back.
So this was far away from special treatment, obviously.
Yeah, far away. I never even seen Nick at that point yet. I haven't even seen the good coaches yet. So I'm just like one of like, you know, 200 students at the time. And again, 11 years old, no friends, couldn't really speak the language. My sister is doing her thing. And so she actually found a friend at the time that she met from Switzerland who spoke German. And she introduced me to him before she left to Miami to go play the Orange Bowl. And so we kind of hung out. So that was helpful. My sister, anyway, long story short, my sister came back from the Orange Bowl. The day before we're supposed to go back to Germany, we play in front of Nick Bollettieri. And so while I'm hitting balls in front of Nick, you know, he starts talking to my sister. And I keep telling my sister, I said, what is he talking about? Like, what is he telling you? And she looks at me like, you know, astonished, saying, he wants us to stay here for 5 years, to call our parents, to send all of our luggage, and just we have a, you know, scholarship. We can stay here 5 years to pursue our dream as professional tennis players.
How long did you see you playing?
Yeah, probably like, you know, 20, 30 minutes, maybe, something like that. So he said right away, like, I like both of your games. I think you have potential.
Yeah.
You know, there's a, you know, we want you here. I think this is a great place for you to follow your dreams as professional tennis players. And the first reaction that I had obviously was like, there's no way. I'm not staying here. I'm going home. There's no chance that I would stay in this type of environment the way I experienced it right now, that I would stay here. So finally, you know, left to go home the next day. I was really happy about it. Fast forward about a year and a half, when I was right around 13 years old, the German channel ZDF wanted to do a story about Nick Bollettieri and bring one of, you know, the bright future potential tennis stars from Germany with us to see what Nick Bollettieri had to say, in this case about me. And so this time I was there with my dad. You know, we obviously stayed together and, you know, rented a car. So I actually got to see the beaches. I got to see a little bit of the Florida lifestyle and, you know, played in front of Nick. And I saw other competitive players from all around the world, the top coaches. And we stayed there. That's where I met 2 of my closest friends right away that are still like brothers to me today, Scott Williams and Greg Hill. And we just sort of hit it off. And, you know, after about a week of that, my dad said, hey, you know, I think you have a lot more potential and maybe a chance to follow your dreams with, you know, the cooperation with IMG International Management Group at the time, wanting to sign me, maybe giving me some wild cards, Nick Bollettieri being in the scene, being one of the great coaches in the world, you know, Andre Agassi practicing there. We see people like Pete Sampras, Monica Seles on the grounds. So the atmosphere was like a completely different atmosphere that I felt at that time. And just seeing all the other great players from all around the world, you know, my age, a little bit older than me, competing there. Iva Majoli, Anna Kournikova. I mean, they all sort of came, you know, Xavier Mali. I mean, you name it. You name it. Even the best, you know, US players, Justin Gimersov, Glenn Wine. I mean, so it was just like all of a sudden so competitive and everything just around tennis. And I constantly, you know, again, with my competitiveness, you know, right away loved it.
And what would you say? Who had more impact, basically? Was it then Nick or was it your father? Because, like, in the beginning, because, like, it's two very strong characters, which I think shaped you in a way.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you know, my dad is one of a kind in many ways, as you know him as well.
He's watching,
very
actually. Hello, Peter. He's watching us. He just
he is watching us. Okay, Servus, alles klar. And yeah, currently in Florida. But yeah, so he of course, you know, shaped my game. You know, shaped me in so many ways from a young age. I mean, I think the good thing was, or the easy thing was, is that I'm really drawn to a tennis court. You know, even like today, like if I have a chance or if I go out there with my friends, I like to play tennis. And that's just because it's just in me. It's something maybe I was born with, if you may want to say so.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a lot of the times, you know, my parents or my mom and my dad, they had to get me off the court at a young age. You know, I would play until you couldn't see anymore. You know, there was no lights at night, like, you know, in the summertime, 9:30, it would get dark. But I would play mini tennis with my friends. I mean, until you could not see anything anymore. And it, you know, it wouldn't happen just once. It would happen multiple times.
Was the time you spent alone on the court with friends sometimes even more valuable than the time with a coach?
I think you need to have both, right? I think that's the fine line of like when to compete, what tournaments to play, when to be serious with your dad, of really, you know, teaching the fundamentals, you know, getting that discipline, you know, playing cross-court backhands 20 minutes, forehand, you know, doing basket drills. And again, you know, my dad didn't really have, you know, a coaching really big history or something. You know, he just kind of started it because it was a good way of making money. But the way my dad was, and, you know, sort of like in Hamburg, Germany, which was actually a very, very good tennis community at the time. You know, Michael Slick was there, Rensenbrink, you know, you had a really good, solid foundation. And so, you know, he just sort of did what he studied, what he learned, what he's seen, you know, in tennis magazines, and sort of drilled me in a really good way. And also in a really, you know, tough way sometimes. You know, my dad's not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna sit here and say it was all always fun. It was sometimes, you know, when I didn't want to play.
But probably he felt that you have so much love for the game that he wanted the best for you. And sometimes you have to push, obviously, a little bit.
Yeah, no, for sure. You have to push. And, you know, as you know, you have two kids now as well. And I have two kids. And, okay, I think with girls and boys, you have to be very careful. It's a little bit different. But, you know, there's many times where I feel like, oh, I would like to push my daughter right now and say, no, we're going to go play tennis now. And if she says, Daddy, I don't really want to, I don't necessarily push too much. But if she was really talented and something really good at it, I mean, I think you have to do it. It's just no way around it at times. But you can do it in a different way, or, you know, whatever way you think is right for you at that certain time. I'm not going to get into details of how my dad grew up, you know, with his dad. So it's a whole different generation. Yeah. But, you know, my dad had to sometimes put his foot down and be a little bit more strict and be a little bit more tough. And, you know, I think, again, as a boy, looking back, I don't look at those things anymore and say, oh, that was kind of harsh. Oh, what you did to me sometimes, or how you talked to me, that wasn't nice. You know, we forget, you know, we're male boy kind of guys. Like, all right, you know what? That was a bad day. You get into an argument with one of your best friends, you know, you kind of like an hour later, hey, everything is good. Let's just go back to, you know, the old ways. You know, with the girls or the females, you have to be careful, you know, how you use certain words. They remember that for the next 10 years and will always, you know, kind of go back to that and say, oh, remember you told me this, remember you told me that. So it's a bit different, but no, he shaped me in a very good way of knowing what discipline, what intensity, what that meant. And again, you know, I pretty much won every junior tournament there was to win. And I was always one of the best in my age group. So I got sort of like the feedback of like, whatever I'm doing right now, it seems to be working.
And then what happened in the years after? I mean, the first time on the big scene, you beat Carlos Moya, I think. This was the first time I remembered you, like in Hamburg, like you were still young, but like kind of beating him in 2 sets. Was this the first time you thought like, hey, this is going to get really interesting here? I can go to the very, very top?
Yeah, maybe not the first time. That's interesting for me. Of course, I remember that time. I think it was in '97. I got a wild card into the main draw there, I believe. And obviously, growing up in Hamburg, going there as a little boy at age 7, 8, watching the tournament, at the Roten Baum, also going there for Davis Cup and getting to see it up close and personal was obviously very special. So, in my opinion, that was always one tournament I wanted to win. And, fellow German friend, Michael Stick, he won it that one time. And I remember him, being
very
from that area
emotional
as well. Yeah, it was so emotional, and him being from there was like such an inspiring moment, and something that I really looked up to, and said like that would be very, very special to do the same one day. I guess for me, I didn't play a real sort of junior type of schedule. I played a few satellites back in the day when there were 4 weeks. So I played my first satellite when I was actually 15 years old in Hawaii. And there was a group of 10 of us from the academy that went to the satellite. One of the best trips probably we ever had, besides just trying to get ATP points. But we had so much fun, and really, the camaraderie between us and the friendship, we still have until this day was second to none. But I got my first 3 ATP points at age 15. So I had a ranking all of a sudden. I don't know what it was, like 790 or 800 in the world.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. I'm like, this is easy. Like I can get some more points and maybe creep up the ranking. Finding out, sooner than later that my next satellite, I didn't play as well. And, you come up against some players that are, men. And when you're 15, you're still missing a little bit of power, endurance, and a few shots in order to be successful. So then I went back to playing a few junior tournaments at 16 and 17, competing within the academy with a lot of the players, and decided at age, once I finished high school, which was right around my 17th, 18th birthday, to play some challengers again and get back into, really turning pro now. And I got my first real break, getting a wild card into Indianapolis in 1996. And so that was my first ATP event. And of course, you remember your first victory on the ATP tour, which was against Dick Norman at the time. He was 6'6", big lefty. Somehow managed to win that match. Then I played, I think, Renzo Forlan, beautiful Italian game, to play Mark Woodford. A very crafty, player, one of the best doubles players of all time in my eyes. And I won those matches, and I'm going, wow, I'm in the quarterfinals to play against the #1 player in the world, Pete Sampras. I cannot believe it. So, you have that experience of like, stadium court, Pete Sampras, and Pete being Pete, he just waited for opportunity to break me once in each set and just served it out. So, he broke me in each set, 6-3, 6-4. But it was such an amazing feeling, even shaking his hand afterwards, #1 player in the world, winning all the big tournaments, and seeing him many years ago prior to that at the academy training. And I felt like, okay, wow, this is it. I've sort of arrived, Then a few weeks later, I qualified for the US Open, playing Michael Stick. So I'm playing one of my idols now as well. First round
Who
on
did you
grandstand.
idolize most, Tommy? Did you idolize most Boris, or was it Michael Stick because he was from Hamburg, or was it maybe Andre Agassi because he was at Nick Bollettieri, or was it a mix of everything?
A little bit of a mix, but mostly I idolize Boris, of course. Yeah,
Okay.
Just his way of playing, competing, letting out the emotions on the court. Winning Wimbledon in '85, and I was that young. I always had something. There was always something special between me and Boris. I always sort of idolized him most. I respected and obviously enjoyed watching Michael Stick play. Just because of the way he played a little bit differently with the feel, the touch. Just you wouldn't believe it at times what kind of tennis he would come up with just by the sheer look of him.
Yeah.
But he was such an amazing, talented player. And took a totally different route as well, right? Where it wasn't always about tennis. It was more about, studying and finishing his degree and then sort of starting. So it just showed how good he really was as well. Not always saying that he kind of puts tennis in, putting tennis into everything. So like that's his #1, even though I don't quite believe it. I think once you have that sort of like smell of success, I think there's only one way. And then obviously meeting Andre, back at the academy for the first time, playing with him when I was 13, and just the way Andre was, like a completely different type of character, and being so close to him. And Nick at the time, I was drawn and sucked in right away as well. And Andre, as he is still today, very caring, took his time, trying to understand and play tennis with you. And I felt like he sort of followed me a little bit, kind of like in the upbringing, and wished me well all the time. So that was very special. And it's great to know that you still have some kind of a pretty cool relationship with those guys today.
Tommy, you won 15 titles. The first one, 1999 in Memphis. You obviously remember, I think, beating Corey in the finals.
Right.
Was this like first one a special one?
It was, yeah, it was one that I needed. You know, I felt like, I think that was my
Yeah.
7th or 8th maybe final. So it was like I needed to get that monkey off my back.
Yeah.
I had chances before, I think in Lyon in '98 when I played Alex Corretja in the final. I had a match point. And you know, that was sort of like the time still where, you know, I felt like I was, you know, on my way to the top. I felt very comfortable. I felt like I can beat anybody on any given day, and you have to have that mentality anyway. But I still struggled a little bit mentally sometimes when it didn't go my way necessarily always on the court. Sometimes I would lose it for 2 or 3 games and just find excuses and not really come back into the match sometimes, because now I'm playing professional players. You know, when you're a junior and you're kind of like, you know, I'm a little bit frustrated. You lose your service game. You know, when you're good enough and you have enough
Would you say you
talent.
were too hard on yourself sometimes?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I looking back, sometimes I felt like I was searching for perfection. And I think I heard the line from Andre Agassi too late, you know, that it's not about striving for perfection. It's about just being better than your opponent on that day. That's all you have to worry about, is like,
so
just
you basically, like Tommy, you could win, but you were still not satisfied with yourself because you did not play perfect.
Sometimes, yeah. I could win a match and come off the court and be like, my forehand didn't feel good at all today. And, you know, the coaches would be like, but you won the match. And I was like, yeah, but it just didn't feel right. I need to change it up, or I could have done this better. I could have done that better. And tennis, unfortunately, is a sport like that, right? Like, you criticize yourself quite a lot. You're out there on your own all the time.
You need it in a way. I mean, it goes both ways.
You need it in a way. At the same time, you know, it's an interesting psychology situation, right? Because you need to be you need to criticize yourself in order to go out there and do the work and keep getting better. At the same time, you need to be gentle with yourself at times and stay positive and applaud yourself for being, you know, for being that disciplined and for being that guy that you are. You know, obviously you need to have a great team around you. That's so important as well, which is a whole different subject. But for yourself, you know, what's going on in between those ears here, you know, criticizing yourself, staying positive at the same time, you know, never giving up, that whole mentality, it's very hard to process at times. And then depending on where you are, if I'm playing a match in front of 50 people somewhere in a challenger, maybe you can get away with certain things, different things. But when you're on center court at Wimbledon at age 19, 20 years old, against one of your idols, is like, how do you process all that? How do you deal with that? You know, all of a sudden you're playing in front of 13,000 people and, you know, it's on live TV. So these are the things that, you know, you have to, you know, all think about. And, you know, and what if, you know, as you know, you're a player yourself, you know, as soon as you have a break point, I can go through 4 different scenarios. Second serve. Okay. Do I chip and charge? Do I come in? Do I hit it up the line? Do I go for it? Do I run around it? Do I play safe? Do I back up? What do you do? So, you know,
and then you immediately judge yourself after the point. You think
right away, you know, and as soon as you back up and you hit a short ball and your opponent hits a forehand winner, you say, be aggressive, man, put pressure on the guy. Yeah, you do it the other way and he passes you, you say, come on, man, play, let him come up with something good. So it's constantly a fight in between the ears, right? So you have to stay calm, you have to stay positive, and you have to find your way, what works best for you. That's really the key.
Tommy, did you play the perfect match? Is one match you look back, you think like you were closest to perfection or to your own like standard you expected from yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was 2.
Yeah.
I think I played Oliver Rochus one time in maybe the second or quarters in Dubai. I think maybe in 2000, I want to say 2007. And there was like one of those days I couldn't miss. And he actually just beat Nikolai Davydenko the round before, my nemesis. Like, I always struggled against Davydenko for whatever reason. I only beat him one time, saving match points. But so I was like, oh God, I got to play Davydenko possibly again. And then Rochus beats him and I'm going, well, so Olivier Rochus must be feeling pretty good. And he was a very crafty player. Remember him? He was, you know, not very tall.
He didn't miss. He was super talented. You had to win every point.
Very gifted. You know, such a good player for all of the capabilities that he had. And so I played him and it was one of those days I couldn't miss. Everything seemed like to stay inside the line. So I think I won like 6-0, 6-2 in like 52 minutes or something. It was just like, wow. You know, you come off the court and you just kind of laugh at yourself and you go, that's just unbelievable. And I think another similar thing happened in the Australian Open. I don't know what year, against Paul Goldstein. It was just like, you know, it was like 6-0, 6-1, 6-1 or something. Like, you know, one of those days, everything seemed to click. Anything I did was really, really good. And you know, so those are like 2 that kind of come up right now. Yeah.
Tommy, then like 2000 Olympic Games, you played, I think, a very, very good semifinals against Roger. You beat him. And,
yeah, that was big.
Obviously, it's tough for me to congratulate you for silver because probably you blame yourself you didn't win gold. I don't know, but like
Yeah,
how,
yeah, yeah. Well, I
how
mean,
was
another funny story. I mean, you know, if you think about maybe one tennis player on tour that pretty much had every injury that you can have or any sickness that you can have, you're looking at him probably right now. So once again, before the Olympics, I had some back issue. You know, I had some issues with my thoracic spine a lot, and I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to go all the way to Australia. I'm not even sure if I can play. But you know, I made the team, and I just missed the team in '96. I was young in '96. I was 18, but I almost made the team. I was next in line, but everybody went, of course, because it's the Olympics. You know, so you want to experience it. So, you know, having discussed it with my family and my team, they said, look, you love Australia. It's in Sydney. It's going to be amazing. Like, you should just go. Even if you're not really fit, doesn't matter. You got to go.
And
So
it
I
was in
decided.
2099 you played semis at the Australian Open, so it was like good
Right.
memories going back to
Yeah,
Australia.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I, you know, rebound ace, you know, my kind of a surface. So I felt good going there. And, you know, Sydney is a great town. I think I played the tournament there once before as well. So I was like, you know what, you guys are right. I got to go there. You know, have the team commodity. I played Davis Cup. You know, I had a pretty good record in Davis Cup all my life. So I enjoy playing for my country as well. And you know, when I got there and we had the opening ceremony, which was still to this day one of the best experiences of my life, I was like, God, I made the right decision. You know, however far I get here, just being here in the Olympic Village, seeing other athletes, incredible, just really, truly incredible. And I remember saying before the tournament started, like, you know, in our group, I said, you know, guys, when you get to a semifinal of a big tournament, let's just say you make it to like Australian Open semifinals, when you lose that match, you kind of go home and you say, semis, you know, that's okay. I mean, would you have liked to go in the final or win the tournament? Of course, that's like your dream.
Yeah.
But semis, you know, I won 5 matches. I lost 1. I'm okay. You go to even to a smaller tournament, like you always say, hey, I won 3 or 4 matches. I got to the semis. I'm pretty good. But now all of a sudden you get to the semis of the Olympics and you play that match. You go, you better win that match because if you don't, you're playing for bronze or nothing. And we all looked at each other going like, wow, that's tough. There is no, I get to the semis, you get a bronze medal. You have to actually still win. So I'm going, Jesus Christ, man, I don't know if I even want to get to the semis to put that pressure on me, right? So, you know, again, just thinking all the time, you know.
Tommy, I was in the semis 2012 in mixed and I ended up 4th place. I know exactly what you're talking about.
There you go. There you go, right? So, I mean, that's, you know, that's hard.
I wish I've never been to the semis, to be honest. I still blame myself for not having a medal.
My point exactly. My point. You know, you lose in the quarters. You know, maybe you don't even think about it, and you feel better than finishing 4th, right? But again, if you don't put yourself in the position, you can't win a medal either. So anyway, next thing you know, I go through the draw. I have a pretty good draw, and I get to the semifinals, and I'm like, I'm here. Now I'm here, and I play against none other than this next kid on the block, Roger Federer, 19-year-old Swiss kid, and I'm going, all right, well, this is it, you know. And but because I was already, I think, so focused like the 10 days before, if I get to the semis, this will be the match.
Okay. So
that I'm
like
going to be. I was so dialed in. I was like, you know, when I watched that match or the highlights sometimes, nothing distracted me. I was just in the zone. And you look at Roger banging his racket, kicking it. I mean, classic, you know, which you don't see at all ever anymore. So
it was pre-Mirka. It was different, you know, like.
This was exactly when they got together. I mean, you know, because of that loss, you know, she had to obviously say, here's a shoulder to cry on. So, you know, I had something to do with that relationship in some ways. But no, all kidding aside, you could see, you know, like the difference when you look at that match, like, you know, Roger still kind of going crazy, also feeling the pressure. Obviously, he was 19 years old. I mean, you can't expect from every sort of young up-and-coming player to be already that dialed in at 18, 19, unless you maybe Rafa Nadal. But it's like, it's very, very hard. But I was so dialed in because I knew that was the match, if I get there, that I was going to be so focused in. And so I won that match, and it was like a relief, right? I was like, I have a medal. Like, for the rest of my life, I will have an Olympic medal. And that was so special to me. Of course, I wanted to win the final against Yevgeny Kafelnikov, who, you know, I had a break point, I think, at 3-all in the 5th. And I didn't make it. You know, again, I probably should have maybe been more aggressive, but I was too defensive. So either way, it didn't work out. And then I watched, also the documentary Icarus. So I kind of sometimes go back and say maybe I should get the medal, but that's a whole nother conversation. Either way, it was just like, wow, I coming home with the Olympic medal, which was great.
Tommy, you played 4 semifinals of Grand Slam tournaments, which is a great achievement. You just said it, like winning 5 matches. Which was the closest for you to get to a finals? Which one would you like to have back?
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's not bad. I think, again, when you criticize yourself in the career, semifinals, 4 semifinals, looking at some of the best players today when, I don't know, Roger had like, what, 26 semifinals in a row. That's like, of Grand Slam. It's like, yeah, I did four. It's like, it's not even worth talking about anymore. But
Yeah,
no, I mean, I think the closest one that maybe I've had was the one in 2002. I was probably playing
against
some really,
Mara.
really good. Yeah, was playing some really good tennis. Unfortunately, I started that doing that tournament to feel my shoulder already in 2002. I was
Yeah,
just having sort of like my best end season in 2001. I got to the semifinals playing against Marat. I think I was up 2 sets to 1, and things were going pretty well. I think I had a really good chance of maybe beating him there, but the rain came at like 1-0 in the fourth set.
yeah.
So when the rain came, it took still about 45 or 50 minutes before we went back on court. And I did something that looking back, I probably shouldn't have done. I went back into the locker room and stretched on the massage table. So in my mind, maybe my body was like shutting off in some weird way. I wasn't
At
like,
this
I
time, it
didn't,
felt right for you. You just wanted to relax a little bit,
yeah,
basically.
I wanted to relax. I wanted to go back to the physio room. I laid on the massage table, stretching a little bit, trying to stay warm. But I probably should have never sat down or laid down at all. I should have kept moving. I should have kept staying right next to the courts and just kind of
Yeah,
like maybe change my shirt and just kind of be like in that same environment, just keep focused. And so when I went to the locker room, maybe something in my mind happened where I kind of shut off a little bit. And when I went back on the court, it took me a while to sort of get back into my rhythm. And Marat almost came back as a whole different player. He just started swinging. He wasn't missing much. I started missing a few big points at 30 all, 40-30, had break point, didn't really use my opportunities. And that set went by like that, 6-love. And so I felt like, wow, now we're here in the fifth. And a couple of important beginning points in the like 1-all or 2-all in the fifth set that went for him. And he ran away with it and took it. So I always felt like maybe if the rain didn't come, maybe if I had more experience with rain delays, I could have gone to the finals there. And Thomas Johansson won it that year, which obviously Thomas is a phenomenal player as well. But
but I
you
had
probably
Marat here in the show 2 weeks ago. That's the match Marat would like to have back.
right, yeah. So I would say the same in that
Yeah,
sense, where it's like no disrespect to Thomas Johansson. I mean, he's a
yeah,
Grand
no,
Slam
no, of course
champion.
not.
He knows how
Yeah,
to play, and he's a great friend of mine. And one of the best serves, some of the best hands you ever see in the game of tennis. And he took advantage of the situation. But you probably rather go play Thomas Johansson than maybe Andre Agassi or Pete Sampras or these guys in the finals. So in that case, that was probably one that maybe slipped away.
you said it already before, Tommy. You had a lot of injuries. Obviously, some were just unlucky when you twisted on the ball on warm up in Wimbledon against Tipsarevic.
I'll
But
post
then,
I'll post that pic. I'll post that video later. It's
yeah, please
unbelievable.
post it because it's unbelievable. When I prepared the show today, it was like there was so many things. I mean, I followed your career very closely, but so many things where I thought, then this was also unlucky in a way. Was one or two injuries maybe because you were too hard on yourself, or was kind of most of the injuries just unlucky at one point?
Yeah, I guess that's always a $1 million question, right? I mean, as you mentioned earlier, I was always very intense, so, I think maybe
Yeah,
if you look at many experts in different fields, they can say, look, you got to be more relaxed. You got to breathe better, got to keep your shoulders low and all that stuff. And a lot of all that things make sense. But, I am a certain way that I am. So
yeah,
looking back, maybe my posture was a little bit more like, always aggressive. Come on, more and more and more. And I would always just kind of have that mentality where it's like, you look at Roger's posture, for instance, shoulders are back. I mean, even when the guy's just sitting regularly, the guy's, shoulder blades, the shoulders, they're always like perfect position. So he's got
yeah,
such amazing posture, which I've never had. And maybe I should have worked on that a little bit more. But so if my posture is already going forward a little bit more, my shoulder already tends to be
yeah,
forward a little bit more. As tennis players, everything is sort of like forward, forward,
yeah,
forward. And then you have, I always had a heavy racket, always tight strings, and I was always playing aggressive and very hard on myself. So the stress maybe of wanting that, which by the way, to me was never stress. I like that stress. I like that feeling of like, come on, more. And I still do. But maybe that had something to do with the whole shoulder situation, right? That
yeah,
maybe there was not enough room for it to kind of flow the way it's supposed to flow. But for me, looking back, the sad thing is always that my tendon literally tore. It wasn't like take 4 weeks off, do some rehab, maybe an injection or two can help to sort of
yeah,
like ease the pain. But it was like the tendon is ripped off. It's completely done. Like there is no more life to it. You have to have surgery. So the same thing with my hip. And then again, in the shoulder again in 2014, I twist my ankle. You can twist your ankle and still maybe say, I'm not good enough to play this match. I might be out for 2, 3, 4 weeks. but I
Yeah.
tore a tendon or two. It's like you're out for 8 weeks at least, or maybe you should have surgery.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why is it always that I have a torn ligament? Like, you know what I mean? I can punch a hole, in the wall right now and be like, oh, my knuckles are sore. Yeah, in 2-3 weeks I'll be better and I'm back on the court. But if I punch a hole in the wall, I
You're
probably
gonna find a
break
way
my
to break
finger.
it.
Yeah. So I felt like that was always maybe a little bit the case in my injuries in a way. And there's so many other little details that you tend to forget. But even when I got to the 4th round at the in Wimbledon, I think back in 2008 after a recovery, I played Tursunov in the 3rd round and I tore my lower stomach muscle. I couldn't even play Roger in the 4th round. I got to the Indian Wells when I beat Andre Agassi in 2005, 3rd round night match. I beat Andre. That night I go to have an In-N-Out burger. I get food poison that night. Couldn't play Roger the next day in the 4th round Indian Wells. So there's a lot of things that always sort of seem to happen. Even Roger's first match that he was ever going to play on the ATP Tour in Start, I think in 1998. I was supposed to play Roger, and the night before I got food poison, and I was like, I can't even walk straight. I can't play today. So a lot of times, even those things sometimes happen, and you just have to adapt to that and just face it how it is, and just kind of sometimes laugh at it. And even when I look back, stepping on that ball, I mean, what are the chances for the ball to come
Tommy,
back?
you have to post it right after the show. You have to post it because I looked at it today and I thought like, this is unbelievable. It's like,
no, it's truly unbelievable. And again, like I said, you can even step on the ball and maybe nothing happens, and you kind of go, whoa, that was close. Like, wow, like maybe. But the way I stepped on the ball, literally my ankle was swelling up within like seconds. I can just feel the blood rushing out of it, and I'm going, I'm done. There's just no way I can recover from this today, or not play Wimbledon. Even then in 2002, I've had my sort of like the best year, number 3 in the world, number 2 in the world.
Yeah.
My shoulder is starting to bother me a little bit. I don't play Halle, Germany on grass, which, as a German player, that's like one of our best favorite tournaments of all time. I mean,
you won it twice, actually.
I won it twice. In later stages, but 2002, and I always like to go there. I played the French Open and I couldn't hit a high forehand. Anything that was up high, I couldn't play. So I dropped the ball on the forehand, somehow got to the 4th round.
Yeah, but you did
pretty
match. Well.
I did pretty well, but I played a terrible match against Andre Pavel in the 4th round on Philippe Chatrier, which that was another match that I don't like. And he was like, his wife was pregnant and he was driving back and forth, and everybody was saying to me, you should win that match. He's tired. He just came back from Romania. And I'm going, really? And so I put so much pressure on myself, and I played a terrible match. And because I couldn't hit a high forehand either, and he was obviously a great player as well, no question about that. But I lost.
Oh, Yevgeny Kafelnikov is here watching, Tommy. If you have a question for Yevgeny, he joined the chat basically.
Yevgeny, yeah. I mean, the sad thing is that also sometimes hi Yevgeny. The sad thing sometimes you also kind of go, I forget how many times you played, but obviously a couple matches that I played Yevgeny, that hurts was 99 Australian semifinals, but he played an unbelievable match. And then obviously losing in the Olympic gold medal match was tough. And also Davis Cup we played one time in Germany. And I think that was a time when he was 2-1 in the world. He played, I mean, maybe that was one of the matches also where I played against somebody that was just too good. Like, I mean, when Yevgeny, if you listen to this, when you played your best tennis, boy, oh boy, you were incredible.
Who was a better player? Who was a better player at their best day? Yevgeny or Marat Safin?
Tough question to answer. I mean, Marat was just pure strength, I mean, Marat, with his powerful serve and, that powerful backhand, it was just pretty. I think Yevgeny was a little bit more crafty. Yevgeny could sort of like slice it a little bit. He had the drop shot. He was very precise with his shots at his best. It would be actually, when they're both at their best, I would have loved to see that match. I think they'd still be playing right now because they wouldn't miss and just kind of go at it. But very, very hard. Very similar in some ways, but, and very similar careers. I think they both won 2 slams and, both number 1. I mean, both just extremely good players. But even Davydenko, the Russian ways of teaching and stuff. I mean, you see it today still with Kashanov and Rublev,
Medvedev,
Zverev, and I'm just joking. But yeah, it's really, really, really impressive.
Tommy, when do you think you played your best tennis? I mean, you became very good early. 2001, you won 4 titles, but you always came strong back after all the injuries you had. When was the best 3-4 months of tennis you've played throughout your career?
Yeah, I think that goes back to the question you asked me earlier. So I think end of 2001 was sort of like the best tennis I was starting to play. I was starting to understand, to be more focused and not let, sometimes let myself drift away from the main goal. So I think I won Vienna and Stuttgart back to back in 2001, which was very, very big. And again, even without injuries, let's just not forget that I win Stuttgart in 2001, which was one of the best indoor tournaments that we had in Germany for many years. I loved watching it. I loved playing it. So here I am, holding up the trophy finally as a German player in Stuttgart 2001 at the Schleierhalle in Stuttgart. And I hear about, 20 minutes later that the tournament is moving to Madrid. And I was like, say what?
No.
I said, I'm not going to be able to defend my title next year here in Stuttgart. What's going on? This is a time you also, you don't pay too much attention of what's going on within the tour, right? You're just kind of like focusing on your own tennis and, playing ways. And I'm going, the tournament is not being held in Stuttgart in 2002. Is that what you're saying? And they said, it's going to Madrid. And I go, wow, I can't believe it. Like, I mean, just my luck. Right now I play this tournament, even like Compact Grand Slam Cup, right? Remember that tournament in Munich, like before Christmas?
Of course I remember. It was
one of the greatest tournaments of all time. I played the last year that it's held in 1999. I got to the finals playing in the, Olympic Hall in Munich. I mean, what is there better for a German player, right? In Stuttgart and Munich, indoors, in front of your home crowd. I get to the finals and it was the last year. 2001, I win Stuttgart. It was the last year. Hamburg is downgrading, moving to July, right? That was like a tournament that I grew up watching. I'm going, what's happening in the German tournaments, right? While I was like at my peak. But anyway, so 2002, going back to after the French Open, when I said my shoulder is hurting too much. So after the fourth round loss there, I decided not to play Halle, which, like I said, impossible to not play normally, right? I mean, number one, you love being there. I always loved playing on grass, and it's in Germany leading up to Wimbledon. But I decided not to give my shoulder a break to be ready for Wimbledon. I go back to Florida. My parents have a motorcycle accident.
Yeah.
My dad's in a coma for 3 weeks. So now I'm like, do I go play Wimbledon or not? I couldn't really ask him the question because he's in a coma. So he probably would have said to play. Looking back, maybe I should have played. It was one of the tournaments that year. I think this when they changed the grass to a little bit slower. And, I think Hewitt beat Nalbandian in the final, which I had pretty good records against both of those guys. Malise was in the semis, who I've had good records against. So I'm going, everybody lost early. Agassi, Sampras to George Bastel. Probably the worst loss in history of tennis on the graveyard court. But it's like, I'm going, this is crazy. So now I'm tending to my dad and my mom, and I'm watching the Wimbledon going, the year I'm not playing, this is happening. It's unbelievable, right? So that was tough. But I sort of, stayed okay throughout 2002, but my shoulder is bothering me. And I go to the experts, in Germany, experts in the US. Nobody can tell me really what's going on. But finally, I think at the end of 2002, I decided, like, shoulder is done. Finish the year, maybe 11 in the world, and I need to have surgery. And that was really hard because, before that, I think Ivanisevic, Michael Steek, a couple of my, somewhat guys I looked up to had the shoulder surgery and never really recovered. And they were also a little bit older, not to forget, but I was like a little bit nervous thinking, my God, maybe this is it. Maybe I'm not coming back ever to something that I love, and I still have more to do, more to achieve. So that was tough. And, then I had to have a second surgery in July of 2003. And I'm going, this is going to be very, very hard to get out of. So I was gone for 15 months. I didn't come back till February 2004. And meanwhile, Roger then won Wimbledon in 2003. Andy Roddick won US Open 2003. And I was, playing these guys and beating these guys. And then when you're watching it at home, when you can't do anything but watch, was hard. Was a tough time. But very, very proud, obviously, of always coming back, finding a way, staying positive. Always never really having a doubt in my mind that I was going to come back. I didn't know how I was going to come back. I never really had that much pop on my serve ever again since the first or second shoulder surgery. But, you try to figure it out. You gotta adapt. You gotta figure out a way to be better.
Was this tough to accept, Tommy? I mean, like, you knew how you were serving before, and then, like, you still, like, you were on top and you won many, many more titles, but, like, kind of like with a percentage serve in a way compared to the way you served before. Did it sometimes come into your mind during a match that, fuck, I would love to serve an ace wide here on the ad side, but somehow I have to slice the tee because my shoulder doesn't go wide anymore? Or was
sometimes it did. I could never crack, I think, more than 119, 120 miles an hour anymore. I had to accept that. So for me, it was all about really good placement, and maybe trying to develop a little bit of a better second serve. you know, to try to get, you know, more of that, you know, aggressive mentality of getting maybe, even if I hit a good second serve into the body or good placement with 95 to 100 miles an hour, I would be able to play my aggressive game. But yeah, I mean, I would have loved to still say, I'm going 133 out wide now, you know, on break point, or just gonna, you know, maybe get, you know, 5 to 10 miles an hour on serves make a huge difference. I mean, 120-mile-hour serve that is not so well placed, I'm gonna get back, you know, 99% of the time. 136-mile-hour serve coming not so placed, well, it's gonna be tougher because it's, you know, you'd have much less time to react to it. But you know, so that was sometimes hard to accept, especially on a faster surface, to maybe, you know, it's all about holding serve really and putting pressure on your opponent and then trying to break him at some point. So it was, you know, I had to adapt to it, but I also accepted it and said, okay, this is how it's going to be. But at least I'm out here playing. You know, I'm playing on the tour again. You know, I finished, I think 2004, I finished back at 17 in the world after being out for 15 months. And 2005, I don't remember so well, maybe some ups and downs. But I think my best year, I started off in 2007. I met Sarah end of 2006, and we kind of got together a little bit. So I was very motivated. You know how it is when you meet somebody new, and you know, if you do well, you know.
You wanted to show her how good you are.
Basically, yeah. And she came to the Australian Open. That was her first tournament in 2007, and I got to the semifinals there. First time I beat Davydenko, you know, saving match points against him, but you know, beating Nalbandian, and I was playing really, really well. And I thought, okay, hey, this is a good chance to possibly get to my first Slam final. This would be awesome. You know, unfortunately, I came across Fernando Gonzalez in the semifinals. That probably also that would go down as one of the matches that I played against somebody that I mean, if he would play like this every time, he would have been number one in the world. There's no question about it. I mean, 45 winners to like 3 unforced errors. I mean, the guy would just not miss and play and hit shot after shot. I mean, this is one of those matches where you say after like an hour and a half, you kind of go, when is this guy going to wake up? Like, this is crazy. How is it possible to play like this, you know, every game, you know, winner. I mean, unreal. So after the match, I was almost like, I was so pissed off that I didn't have a chance to actually play my game and had to accept that he played at such a high level. And at the same time, I was like, there was nothing I could have done. So I had to accept that too, and maybe not be so frustrated for too long, because you know how it is when you lose matches that you could have won. You know, it might have taken you 2, 3, 4 days to actually be a normal human being again. But in this case, I was like, wow, there's nothing. I didn't do anything wrong, unfortunately. I wish I did in a way, but he just played lights out.
Tommy, it's so much fun listening to you. Like, you feel the passion, the dedication you have for the game. We're almost running out of time in the show. What about having the second part of the chat next? Because I want to know, what's your favorite tournament? You won Halle twice, Vienna twice. You won Memphis, I think, 3 times. I want to know, what's your favorite Slam? Who's the greatest of all time? Because you played all of them. I have so many questions. If you tell me you have half an hour for us next week, that would be unbelievable.
We can make that happen. I look at my schedule. I mean, it looks like things are opening up again here. But no, I'm sure we can make that happen. If the fans want to, then let's make it happen.
They would love to. We even switch time for you. So you tell me whenever you have half an hour for us, because there's so much to talk about. And Tommy, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Same here. Stay well. All the best.
Say hi to Sarah and the kids. All the best, Tommy. Bye bye.
Danke. Ciao.
Ciao.